My name is Taylor Wreath. I am a first year at UVA. I did take 2 gap years though, where all my solo traveling happened, so I am 21 years old. What inspired me to start solo traveling was exiting high school and not really having a plan. All my plans kind of fell through. So I just had this block of time because I took a gap year. I then decided that it was going to turn into 2, and I just wanted to kind of explore and see what was out there, kind of challenge myself. It started with an AT through hike attempt, actually. I wanted to do that in 2021. Ended up getting off trail after like 2-ish weeks, and then I just had this money saved up and all this time, so I decided to just get in my car and started driving. COVID played a massive role in my decision to do it, yeah. I actually ended up creating kind of a goal of visiting all 50 states before I turned 22. So the real goal was just to kind of visit as many states as I could. I also really wanted to see some national parks that I'd never really seen before, go hiking and such in them. The first one, I went up to Michigan. I always go to Michigan first because my great-grandmother lives there, so I want to see her. And then I went down through Nebraska to visit for the first time, spent a lot of time in Colorado, then New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, to California, then up the coast. And then I basically just came straight back through like Idaho and such. It started in May because that's actually right before Trail Days happens. Trail Days is an Appalachian Trail Festival in Damascus, Virginia, so like way down south in Virginia. That was my first stop, and it was so much fun. It was just friends that I'd met on my through hike attempt that were all there. They have this thing called Tent City where it's just this giant field like full of tents with little like walkways and such in between. And the actual festival part is like back in these woods, and there's music and there's just a ton of different activities. So one guy was like throwing fire at one point. It was kind of crazy, like a drum circle and stuff. So that was the first stop, which I think was a great way to kind of kick off the whole adventure because it was such a new environment for me. And then as far as like the hiking goes, my first trip when I went to Utah, I went to Zion National Park, which I really loved as well. And they have this hike called Angel's Landing, which is like a very narrow path on this ridgeline, and you basically have to hold on to a chain the whole time. And actually 13 people have died there in the last 20 years from like falling off this cliff face. Also a little like the risk taker in me was like, 13 people died, bet, let's try it. So that was definitely a very memorable spot. Some people that really stood out to me was I was in Great Sand Dunes National Park, feeling particularly lonely. I hadn't talked to anyone in a while, and I was pretty much content to just kind of set up my tent and go to bed. I was trying to start a fire to cook some food. I couldn't start a fire. So this dad came over. He was there like 2 campsites down with his 2 kids. His daughter was my age, and then his son, who was a freshman in high school at the time. And he like offered me a fire starter. And at first I was just gonna take it, but then I was like, no, like you're lonely, you gotta talk to people. So I was like, hey, could I join you for dinner? I told him I was solo traveling, which now that I look back on it may not have been, but he had his kids there. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I basically invited myself to their dinner, and they ended up cooking this really incredible meal with like this pork tacos and corn and shit. And ended up talking with them all night. And at one point, I'd never done edibles before, but he had some. And just the vibes were right, so I took the risk and I took edibles with them, which was a lot of fun. His daughter was super nice though. Like they offered me a drink, and she was like, I'll take a sip before you, just so you feel safe. Like she was really like making sure that I felt good. So yeah, we got high together, and I made them paper cranes and gave it to them. And that's kind of the beauty of some of these experiences is, you know, not every person is supposed to stick with you, at least not like physically. Obviously mentally they made an impact. But it's fun to have those amazing experiences and just leave them there. My advice for anyone solo traveling would be make a fool of yourself. Like it really doesn't matter. Do the things that you want to do. Start conversations, make friends. Even if you're worried about like what they think of you, you'll probably never see these people again. So their opinion really does not matter. And it's going to be a very lonely time unless you put yourself out there. So just continuously put yourself out there. My travels definitely helped me just because I realized life doesn't matter as much as I think it does. You know, everything is just, everyone is living for the first time just like you are, so there's no need in stressing about it.